My name is Haley, I'm 26, and I just made my entire family cry. Not because I'm cruel, but because after decades of being the butt of their so-called jokes, I finally stood up for myself. When they canceled my train ticket as a prank and left me stranded at a rural station on Thanksgiving Eve, something inside me snapped. I decided it was time they experienced what it felt like to be canceled too. The story of how I canceled everything they took for granted is just beginning. Before I dive in, where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family members who crossed the line. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Growing up in Franklin, Indiana, a town so small you could walk from one end to the other in 20 minutes, my family was known for two things: my dad Steve's hardware store and our sense of humor. At least, that's what my parents and brothers called it. In reality, it was a culture of pranks that usually left someone, typically me, hurt, embarrassed, or in tears. My brothers Matt and Jason, 31 and 29 now, were always the instigators. Being the youngest and only girl somehow made me the perfect target. Haley reacts the best, they'd say, as if my genuine distress was just part of the entertainment. It started small when I was around 8. Matt convinced me my pet goldfish could breathe air and suggested I take it out for a walk. When the inevitable happened, everyone laughed as I sobbed over my dead fish. "It's just a fish," my mom Karen said, patting my back while still chuckling. "Don't be so sensitive." That became the family motto whenever a prank went too far: don't be so sensitive. When I was 12, Jason told me my diary had fallen into the creek behind our house. I spent hours searching in the cold water until I was shivering and scared, only to return home and find him reading it aloud to his friends in the living room. My parents were there too, not intervening, just shaking their heads with amused smiles. "We were going to stop you sooner," Mom said afterward. "But you looked so determined out there." High school brought more sophisticated humiliations. They created a fake social media profile of a boy who supposedly had a crush on me. For weeks, I exchanged messages with this boy, sharing my deepest thoughts and insecurities. The big reveal came at dinner one night when Matt connected his phone to our TV to show everyone our private conversations. The entire family howled with laughter as I ran from the table in tears. "Oh, come on," Dad said when he came to my room later. "It was pretty funny. And now you know not to trust strangers online. We taught you a valuable lesson." That was another common justification: the pranks were actually teaching moments. As if humiliation was the only way to learn life lessons. College was my escape. I chose Northwestern in Chicago, a 5-hour drive from home. Those 4 years gave me room to breathe, to discover who I was without being constantly on guard. I made real friends who didn't find my discomfort entertaining. I excelled in my marketing classes, built a portfolio, and secured an internship that later turned into a full-time position at a respected digital marketing agency. For the first time, I was valued for my intelligence and creativity rather than my reactions to cruel jokes. I started therapy, too, where I began unpacking the impact of growing up as the family punchline. My therapist was the first person who used the term emotional abuse to describe some of my family's pranks. The word felt simultaneously shocking and validating. After graduation, I found an apartment in Chicago with 2 roommates. I started visiting home less frequently, major holidays only, and even then, I'd keep my stays short. 3 days maximum, I'd tell myself. 3 days I could endure. The distance helped. Phone calls were easier to manage than in-person interactions. I could always claim a work emergency and hang up if things went south. I built a life I loved in Chicago, made friends who respected boundaries, and dated people who didn't think causing distress was a form of entertainment. Over time, my success became undeniable. Last year, I was promoted to senior marketing specialist, managing campaigns for national brands. I bought my own condo in Wicker Park. From the outside, I was the family's success story. My parents started bragging about me to their friends, suddenly proud of their daughter making it in the big city. My brothers occasionally asked for professional advice or connections. It seemed like our dynamic was shifting as adults. But during my brief visits home, I'd notice how quickly they'd revert to old patterns. My mom would accidentally mention embarrassing childhood stories at community gatherings. My dad would make jokes about my fancy city life that carried a sting of resentment. My brothers would still try to trick me, though their attempts had grown more subtle. I kept my distance emotionally, sharing less of my personal life during calls home. I declined invitations to extended family vacations, citing work commitments. I maintained a careful balance of minimal contact while avoiding complete estrangement. But this year was different. My grandmother's health had been declining, and my parents emphasized how much it would mean to her if the whole family were together for Thanksgiving. It had been nearly 2 years since my last visit. I'd managed to use COVID as an excuse to skip last year's gatherings. "She keeps asking about you," Mom said on the phone. "She's not getting any younger, Haley." So I agreed. I requested time off work, booked a train ticket, and mentally prepared myself for 4 days in Franklin. I wanted to believe that things would be different now that we were all adults. Maybe they had finally outgrown the prank culture. Maybe I could finally have a normal family holiday. Little did I know, I was walking straight into their most elaborate joke yet. Planning the trip home required more coordination than I expected. Initially, I considered flying into Indianapolis and renting a car to drive the 40 minutes to Franklin, giving myself the freedom to escape if needed. But my family insisted on picking me up. "Don't waste money on a rental," my dad said over the phone 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. "We can pick you up, no problem." "It's not a big deal," I countered. "I'd have more flexibility." "Flexibility for what? Running away from us?" He laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Come on, Haley. Let us pick you up. Your mom's looking forward to it." I relented, partly because it would save me money, but mostly to avoid the argument. Instead of flying, I decided to take the Amtrak from Chicago to Indianapolis, where they would meet me at the station. The train journey would take just over 5 hours, longer than flying, but less expensive and potentially more relaxing. I could work or read on the way. 2 weeks before the trip, I sent my family the details. Arriving Wednesday, November 24th at Indianapolis Union Station. Train arrives at 4:30 p.m. My mom confirmed immediately, "Perfect. We'll all be there to welcome you home." "All of you?" "You don't need to bring everyone," I replied, already imagining the scene, my entire family making a spectacle at the station. "It's been so long." "We're excited," she texted back with too many exclamation points. In the days leading up to the trip, we had several conversations confirming the arrangements. My mom called twice to ask what foods I wanted at Thanksgiving dinner. My dad called once to check if I needed them to pick up anything specific from the store before my arrival. Even my brothers sent occasional texts, which was unusual for them. "Looking forward to seeing you, city girl," Matt wrote. "Got some new board games for after dinner," Jason added. Their sudden attentiveness made me hopeful. Maybe they really had missed me. Maybe the prank culture had finally faded as we'd all grown older. Maybe this Thanksgiving would be different. The morning of my departure arrived with a light snowfall in Chicago. I packed methodically, comfortable clothes for 4 days, a semi-formal outfit for Thanksgiving dinner, small gifts for family members, and my laptop in case I needed to check in with work. I added an extra book and a power bank for the train journey. At the station, I texted my mom one final confirmation, "Boarding now. Still on schedule for 4:30 arrival." "We'll be there," she responded. "Drive safely," which made me smile at her motherly confusion about my mode of transportation. "Taking the train, Mom, not driving," I replied. "Of course. You know what I mean. Travel safely." The train pulled out of Chicago's Union Station at 11:15 a.m. As Illinois farmland replaced the urban landscape outside my window, I felt a mix of nostalgia and anxiety. Part of me longed for the simplicity of small-town life, while another part remembered why I had left. I spent the first hour reviewing a campaign proposal on my laptop. Then I read for a while, occasionally looking out the window at the winter scenery passing by. Around 1:30 p.m., I went to the dining car for lunch, texting a picture of my sandwich to my mom. On my way. About 3 hours to go. We're counting down, she replied. Dad's already talking about where to have dinner tonight. The rest of the journey passed uneventfully. I exchanged messages with my roommate Rachel, who knew about my complicated family dynamics and had offered emotional support. Text me when you arrive, she wrote. And remember our exit strategy if things get weird. We had developed a system where she would call with a work emergency if I sent her a specific emoji. It was comforting to have a backup plan. As the train approached Indianapolis, I gathered my belongings and put on my coat. I felt a flutter of genuine excitement beneath my apprehension. Despite everything, they were still my family. And perhaps time and distance had healed some old wounds. The train pulled into Indianapolis Union Station at 4:28 p.m., 2 minutes ahead of schedule. I texted my mom as I disembarked, just arrived. Where should I meet you? There was no immediate response, which didn't concern me. The station was busy with pre-Thanksgiving travelers, and I assumed they might be parking or navigating through the crowds. I made my way to the main concourse, rolling my suitcase behind me, and found a bench near the entrance where they would likely come in. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I called my mom's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried my dad next, with the same result. 15 minutes became 30. The station began to empty as other passengers met their rides or continued to their next destinations. I kept checking my phone, increasingly confused. This wasn't like my parents, who tended to be punctual to a fault. I called each family member again, including both brothers. All calls went to voicemail. At 5:15 p.m., 45 minutes after my arrival, I sent a group text, at the station. Is everything okay? Did something happen? No response. I began to wonder if there had been an accident or emergency. Maybe they were stuck in traffic or dealing with car trouble. But wouldn't they have called or texted if that were the case? At 5:30 p.m., I called my grandmother's house, thinking perhaps they had gone to see her first and lost track of time. Hello? Her familiar voice was reassuring. Grandma, it's Haley. I'm at the train station in Indianapolis, but no one's here to pick me up. Are Mom and Dad with you? Haley? No, dear. They're all at home preparing for tomorrow. They said you were coming in tomorrow morning. My stomach dropped. No, I'm supposed to be arriving today. We've been planning this for weeks. Well, that's strange, she said. I talked to your mother just an hour ago, and she definitely said tomorrow. I thanked her and hung up, increasingly unsettled. Something wasn't right. I called my parents' landline, which finally connected. Hello? My mom answered, the sound of laughter in the background. Mom? I'm at the station. Where is everyone? A pause. Then more laughter, louder now, as if the phone had been put on speaker. Oh, Haley. My mom's voice had that forced innocence I recognized from childhood pranks. Weren't you coming tomorrow? My heart sank as realization dawned. Mom, you know perfectly well I was coming today. We've confirmed it multiple times. I fought to keep my voice steady as the background laughter grew louder. Check your ticket again, honey, she said with mock concern. I'm sure we said Thursday. Before I could respond, I heard my phone ping with a text message. I pulled the phone away from my ear to glance at it. It was from Matt. How long have you been waiting? In that moment, everything clicked into place. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. Put Matt on the phone, I said coldly. He wants to know if you're still at the station, my mom said, ignoring my request as more laughter erupted in the background. I hung up and looked at my phone as it pinged with another message, this time in the family group chat. Jason, prank'd. We canceled your return ticket too. Attached was a photo of my family, parents and brothers, seated around the dining table with a partially eaten meal, raising glasses toward the camera. They had clearly started Thanksgiving dinner a day early, without me. My hands shook as I processed what was happening. They had deliberately left me stranded at a train station over an hour from home, in a city where I knew no one, the night before Thanksgiving. And they thought it was hilarious. I looked around the station, which had emptied considerably in the last hour. Only a handful of travelers remained, most looking as stranded and confused as I felt. The information desk was closing, its attendant putting on his coat. I hurried over. "Excuse me, when's the last train back to Chicago tonight?" He checked his computer. "Last one left at 5:45. "I just missed it," I said, my heart sinking. "What about tomorrow morning?" "Nothing running on Thanksgiving Day, ma'am. First train out will be Friday morning at 7:30. "Are you sure?" "My ticket said there was a 9 p.m. train tonight." He frowned. "That train was cancelled weeks ago due to track maintenance. It should have been reflected when you purchased your ticket." It dawned on me that my family had known this. They hadn't just failed to pick me up, they had deliberately chosen a day when I couldn't easily return to Chicago, maximizing my distress. The calculated cruelty of it made me feel physically ill. "Is there a hotel nearby?" I asked the attendant. "The station hotel is fully booked for the holiday," he replied. "There's a Motel 6 about a mile and a half down Washington Street. Not the nicest place, but they might have vacancies." I thanked him and stepped away, my mind racing. My phone buzzed again with another message from the family chat. "Matt, did she figure it out yet?" "Dad, tell her the Holiday Inn downtown has vacancies if she needs somewhere to stay." "Mom, don't spoil it. Let her figure it out herself." I turned my phone off, unable to bear any more of their fun. Looking out the station windows, I saw that night had fallen. The temperature had dropped, and a light snow was beginning to fall. I had a heavy suitcase, and the prospect of walking a mile and a half in these conditions was daunting. I checked Uber, but the wait time showed 25 minutes due to holiday demand. The local taxi service I found online had a recorded message saying they were closed for Thanksgiving weekend. With no better options, I zipped up my coat, pulled on my gloves, and began the walk to the motel, rolling my suitcase through slushy sidewalks. The journey took nearly 40 minutes. My fingers were numb despite my gloves, and my suitcase wheels struggled through patches of snow. The further I walked from the station, the less maintained the sidewalks became, forcing me to navigate around icy patches and snow piles. The Motel 6 appeared finally, a single-story building with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. It wasn't what I'd envisioned for my Thanksgiving accommodation, but at this point, I was just grateful to see it. The front desk clerk was an older woman with tired eyes and frizzy gray hair. She looked up from her romance novel as I entered, tracking snow across the worn lobby carpet. "Need a room, hon?" she asked, setting her book aside. "Yes, please." My voice cracked slightly. "Just for tonight, possibly tomorrow too." She studied my face. "You okay? Look like you've had a rough go of it." I didn't realize tears had started streaming down my face until she pushed a box of tissues across the counter. As I wiped my eyes, the full weight of what my family had done hit me. "My family," I started, then paused to compose myself. "My family left me stranded at the station as a prank. For Thanksgiving." Her expression shifted from concern to indignation. "They did what now?" I explained the situation briefly as she checked me in, deliberately leaving out my return ticket being cancelled too. I couldn't bear to say it out loud again. "People can be real pieces of work," she said, handing me a room key. "Even family. Especially family, sometimes." She hesitated, then added, "Kitchen's closed, but I've got some microwave dinners in the break room fridge. Turkey and stuffing. Not fancy, but it's hot. Want one?" Her kindness broke something in me. I nodded, unable to speak. "Room 112, she said. "Go get settled. I'll bring it over in 10. In the dingy motel room with its faded floral bedspread and humming mini-fridge, I finally turned my phone back on. Dozens of messages had accumulated, all from family members alternating between mocking my situation and feigning concern. I ignored them all and called Rachel instead. When she answered, I broke down completely. "Oh, Haley," she said after I explained what happened. "That's not a prank. That's just cruel." "They think it's hilarious," I said between sobs. "They're all having Thanksgiving dinner without me while I'm stuck in a Motel 6. "This isn't okay," Rachel said firmly. "This crosses every line. You know that, right?" For the first time, I truly did know it. All the years of justifications and minimizing suddenly felt hollow. This wasn't playful family teasing. This was deliberate cruelty disguised as humor. "I'm done," I said, sudden clarity cutting through my distress. "I'm absolutely done being their punching bag." "What are you going to do?" Rachel asked. I took a deep breath, my mind already forming a plan. "I'm going to show them exactly what it feels like to be cancelled." The motel room was cold despite the rattling heater beneath the window. I sat on the bed, wrapped in the thin blanket, as I ate the microwaved turkey dinner the desk clerk, Martha, she'd introduced herself, had brought over. The food was bland and slightly dry, but it was the kindest thing anyone had done for me all day, and I was grateful. Outside, the snow was falling more heavily now. Through the gap in the curtains, I could see the parking lot lights illuminating swirling flakes. Cars occasionally passed on the main road, headlights briefly flooding my room before continuing on to their destinations, to homes and families and proper Thanksgiving celebrations. My phone continued to buzz with notifications, which I still ignored. I couldn't bear to read more of their messages. Instead, I called my grandmother again. "Haley," she answered. "Did you get everything figured out with your parents?" "Not exactly," I said carefully. I didn't want to upset her with family drama, but I needed to know if she was part of this. "Grandma, did you know they weren't going to pick me up today?" "What?" Her confusion seemed genuine. "They told me you were coming tomorrow." "Are you saying they knew you were coming today and didn't get you?" "It was a prank," I said, the words tasting bitter. "They left me stranded at the station as a joke." Her silence spoke volumes. "Then, that's not right, Haley. That's not right at all. At least someone in my family had a moral compass." We talked a little longer, with her apologizing repeatedly though it wasn't her fault. She offered to call my parents, but I asked her not to. "I need to handle this my way," I said. "But thank you." After we hung up, I sat in silence for several minutes, contemplating my next steps. The sensible thing would be to book a hotel in downtown Indianapolis for tomorrow, somewhere nice as a small act of self-care, and then take the Friday morning train back to Chicago. I could salvage the holiday weekend back home with friends. But there was a deeper decision to be made about my family. Every boundary I'd attempted to set had been trampled. Every effort to maintain a relationship had been met with disrespect. And now this, abandonment disguised as humor. I opened my laptop and navigated to a document I created years ago in therapy titled Family Patterns. It was a record of incidents, behaviors, and feelings. A way to prevent gaslighting by documenting what actually happened versus how it was later reframed by my family. I added today's prank to the list, which now spans several pages. Looking at it objectively, the pattern was undeniable. And it wasn't going to change unless something dramatic happened. Around 9:15 p.m., my phone rang with my mother's number. After a deep breath, I answered. "Haley." "Finally." She sounded cheerful. "We've been trying to reach you for hours." In the background, I could hear laughter and the clink of dishes. "I've been busy finding a place to stay," I replied flatly. "Did you find somewhere good?" she asked. "We were a little worried when you didn't respond." "No, you weren't," I said. "If you were worried, you wouldn't have left me stranded in the first place." "Oh, honey, it was just a little joke. We were going to come get you eventually." We just wanted to see how you'd react. The casual dismissal made my blood boil. How I'd react to being abandoned at a train station. How did you expect me to react, Mom? Don't be so sensitive, she said, lowering her voice as if others might hear. Everyone thought it was funny. You used to have a better sense of humor. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? I asked. Well, there are plenty of hotels in Indianapolis. Or you could have called a cab to come home. A cab would cost over $100, and you know that. So? It's just money, Haley. The look on your face would have been worth it. There it was, confirmation that my distress was the whole point. My discomfort was their entertainment. I'm staying at a motel tonight, I said. I'll figure out tomorrow when it comes. Don't be like that, she said, her tone shifting to annoyance. It was just a joke. Everyone's here having a good time. Don't ruin the holiday with your overreaction. Good night, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. Almost immediately, my phone rang again, my dad this time. I didn't answer. Then Matt. Then Jason. Then my mom again. I turned the ringer off and set the phone aside. I opened my laptop again and began methodically making plans. First, I booked a room at a nice hotel in downtown Indianapolis for Thursday night. Then I confirmed my train ticket for Friday morning, the one I had originally purchased, which apparently hadn't been cancelled despite Jason's claim. Next, I opened a new document and titled it Cancellations. Item by item, I listed all the ways my family had taken advantage of my generosity over the years. They used my Netflix, Hulu, and Spotify accounts without contributing. They expected me to help with their taxes every year because I was good with numbers. They counted on my financial contribution to the annual family vacation. My brother Matt had been asking me to help him get a job at my company. I had promised to help organize and fund my sister-in-law's baby shower next month. I had agreed to host my parents for a week in Chicago in January. I regularly sent gifts for birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. For years, I had maintained these connections out of a sense of obligation, hoping that generosity might eventually be reciprocated with respect. But it never was. I stared at the list, a plan forming in my mind. If they wanted to cancel my Thanksgiving by leaving me stranded, perhaps it was time I canceled a few things of my own. Rachel called to check on me around 10 p.m. I'd been thinking about what you said earlier, she told me. About being done being their punching bag. I meant it, I said. I'm done. Good, she said firmly. Because what they did wasn't just mean, Haley. It was abusive. Full stop. Hearing the word again, abusive, sent a chill through me. But I knew she was right. What kind of family leaves someone stranded at a train station as entertainment? I'm not going to yell or make a scene, I said, outlining my plan to her. I'm just going to quietly remove myself from their lives in all the ways they've come to depend on me. They canceled me from Thanksgiving. I'm canceling them from my life. It sounds like you've thought this through, Rachel said. Just remember you don't have to decide everything tonight while you're upset. I'm not just upset, I replied, surprising myself with my calm certainty. I'm clear. For the first time in years, I'm seeing everything clearly. After we hung up, I lay in the lumpy motel bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering Indianapolis in a silent blanket of white. Tomorrow would be Thanksgiving, my first one completely alone. But as I drifted off to sleep, I realized something important. Being alone wasn't the worst thing that could happen. Being surrounded by people who took pleasure in my pain, that was far worse. I woke early on Thanksgiving morning to sunlight reflecting off fresh snow. For a moment, I forgot where I was, expecting to see my childhood bedroom or my Chicago apartment. The reality of the dingy motel room hit me with a fresh wave of hurt, quickly followed by resolve. My phone showed 27 missed calls and 43 text messages. I skimmed them without reading closely. Mom, Haley, don't be dramatic. Call us back. Dad, your mother's getting worried. This isn't funny anymore. Matt, come on, sis, it was just a joke. Lighten up. Jason, are you seriously ghosting the whole family over a little prank? I sent one message to the family group, I'm fine. Staying at a hotel in Indianapolis. Heading back to Chicago tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving. Then I silenced the conversation again and got ready for the day. I showered in the tiny bathroom with its lukewarm water and thin towels, dressed in comfortable clothes, and packed my overnight essentials. I'd return for the rest of my luggage before checking out tomorrow. At the front desk, Martha was finishing her overnight shift. You heading out? She asked. Just for the day. I booked a nicer place downtown for tonight. She nodded approvingly. Good for you. Treat yourself. Thank you for the dinner last night, I said. It really helped. Don't mention it. And hey, she hesitated. Family's complicated. Sometimes the people who should love us best know exactly how to hurt us worst. Doesn't mean you have to keep letting them. Her words stayed with me as I took an Uber to the Conrad Indianapolis, a luxury hotel I'd splurged on for my Thanksgiving accommodation. The lobby was decorated with tasteful autumn arrangements and a large Christmas tree, and soft holiday music played in the background. Happy Thanksgiving, the receptionist said cheerfully as she processed my early check-in. Are you in town visiting family? No, I replied. Just treating myself to a quiet holiday. My room was on the 14th floor with a view of the city. It was elegant, spotless, and peaceful, the opposite of the emotional chaos my family thrived on. I ordered room service breakfast and ate while watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on TV, a tradition I'd always enjoyed. Around noon, my phone rang with my grandmother's number. She was the only call I would take. Haley? Are you okay? She sounded genuinely concerned. I'm fine, Grandma. I got a nice hotel room and I'm watching the parade. Your parents told me what happened, she said. They said you're overreacting to their little joke. Is that what they said? I kept my voice neutral. Did they tell you they deliberately left me stranded at the train station with no way to get home? Well, no. They said they were planning to come get you but you stormed off. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. That's not what happened, Grandma. They never showed up. They were having dinner at home while I waited for hours. Her silence told me she believed me. That's not right, she finally said. Not right at all. I'm going back to Chicago tomorrow, I told her. I'll call you next week, okay? After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began implementing my cancellation plan. First, I changed all my streaming service passwords, logging out all connected devices. My family had been using my accounts for years without contributing to the subscription costs. Next, I drafted an email to my brother Matt about his job search. Matt, after considerable thought, I don't believe I can recommend you for a position at my company. The culture here emphasizes respect, empathy, and professionalism, values that I haven't seen consistently demonstrated in our family interactions. Yesterday's prank confirmed this decision. I wish you success in your job search elsewhere. I composed similar messages regarding all the items on my cancellation list, scheduling them to send over the next few days rather than all at once. This wasn't about creating maximum drama, it was about systematically removing myself from situations where my generosity was exploited and my boundaries disrespected. For the family vacation fund, to which I was expected to contribute the largest share despite being the youngest, I wrote to the group email thread. I need to inform everyone that I won't be contributing to the summer vacation fund this year, nor will I be attending. I've decided to use my vacation time and budget for a solo trip instead. Please adjust your plans accordingly. Around 4 p.m., my phone started ringing again, dinner time at my parents' house, when my absence would be most noticeable. I let the calls go to voicemail and ordered my own Thanksgiving dinner from room service: turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green beans, and pumpkin pie. It arrived beautifully plated on a rolling table with a small vase containing a single autumn flower. I took a photo and posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Thankful for peace and self-respect this year. Hashtag solo Thanksgiving." Within minutes, comments appeared from family members. Mom, very dramatic, Haley. Call us. Matt, seriously? It was a joke. Jason, Princess can't take a little prank. I deleted their comments and restricted their accounts. Later that evening, after the dishes had been cleared and I was relaxing with a book, my phone pinged with an email notification. It was from my sister-in-law Emma, Jason's wife, who was expecting their first child in March. "Haley, I just heard what happened. I'm so sorry." For what it's worth, I told Jason it was a terrible thing to do. "I hope you're okay. The family dinner tonight was tense, your absence was definitely felt. I don't blame you for being upset. Take care of yourself." It was the first genuine apology I'd received from anyone directly involved. I wrote back thanking her for her understanding but reiterating that I wouldn't be helping with her baby shower. She was collateral damage in this situation, which I regretted, but I needed a clean break. Before going to bed, I checked my email to find my brother Matt had finally seen my message about not recommending him for a job. "Are you serious? You're going to tank my career over one joke? This is insane, Haley. Mom and Dad are right, Chicago has changed you." I didn't respond. Instead, I logged into my Netflix account and watched with grim satisfaction as the notification appeared, "You have been signed out of all devices. All authorized devices will need to sign in again." Somewhere in Franklin, Indiana, my family's streaming services had just gone dark in the middle of their post-Thanksgiving movie night. A small cancellation, but a symbolic start. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and took an Uber back to the Motel 6 to collect the rest of my luggage. Martha was gone, replaced by a bored-looking young man who barely looked up as I returned my key. I left a good review on the motel's website mentioning Martha's kindness specifically. At the train station, I bought a coffee and found a seat in the waiting area. My phone had been buzzing consistently since last night. Apparently, the Netflix cancellation had triggered a family uproar, followed by the discovery of my other streaming service changes. The vacation fund email had also landed, creating another wave of outrage. I didn't read most of the messages, but one from my father caught my eye. "This childish behavior needs to stop immediately. You can't just cancel family because your feelings got hurt. We raised you better than this. Call home now." I almost laughed at the irony. They had literally cancelled my Thanksgiving by leaving me stranded, but my cancellations were childish behavior. The double standard was so blatant it was almost comical. As the train pulled out of Indianapolis, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. Chicago, my real home, was just a few hours away. I had 4 days of holiday weekend ahead of me to decompress and adjust to my new reality. The more distance I put between myself and Franklin, the clearer my thoughts became. This wasn't just about one cruel prank, it was about a lifetime of normalized disrespect. My cancellations weren't petty revenge, they were necessary boundaries. By the time the Chicago skyline appeared on the horizon, I had turned off my phone completely. Whatever drama was unfolding in my wake would have to wait. For now, I was focused on the peace that came with finally standing up for myself. The week after Thanksgiving passed in a blur of work deadlines and deliberate focus. I kept my phone off for most of the weekend, turning it on only briefly each evening to check for important messages. The barrage from my family continued. Alternating between anger, guilt-tripping, and occasional genuine confusion about why I was overreacting. By Monday, I had implemented most of my cancellation plan. In addition to the streaming services and vacation fund, I had canceled my parents' planned January visit to Chicago. Informed my brother Jason I wouldn't be helping with his website redesign. Withdrawn from the family gift exchange. Canceled the automatic monthly transfers I'd been making to help my parents with their property taxes. Each cancellation was met with increasing panic as my family began to realize I was serious. The tone of their messages shifted gradually from indignation to concern. On Tuesday morning, I received a voicemail from my mother that captured the change. "Haley, this has gone far enough. We're sorry about the train station thing, okay? We didn't think it would upset you this much. Please call us back. Your father is stressed about the property tax situation." I didn't call back, but I did email my father links to tax preparation resources and suggestions for local accountants. I wasn't trying to cause financial hardship, just removing myself from the equation. On Wednesday, my grandmother called again. "Your mother tells me you've cut them off from everything," she said. "Is that true?" "Not everything," I clarified. "Just the things they've taken for granted or used to control me." "They're hurt, Haley." "I was hurt too, Grandma. Left alone at a train station on Thanksgiving Eve as a joke." She sighed. "I know. That was wrong of them. But they're your parents. Your family. Being family doesn't give them the right to humiliate me for entertainment." There was a long pause. "No," she finally admitted. "It doesn't." By the end of the week, I had settled into a new routine, one that didn't involve daily family check-ins or constant boundary violations disguised as concern. I felt lighter, more focused, more like myself. Then the first real crisis hit. My grandmother called on Sunday afternoon, her voice tight with worry. "Haley, I hate to ask this of you with everything going on, but I've had a fall. Nothing broken, thank the Lord, but I need help with some medical appointments this week. Your mother usually drives me, but she and your father left for that cruise yesterday." The cruise, I had forgotten. My parents had booked a 7-day Caribbean cruise months ago, departing the first week of December. "What about Matt or Jason?" I asked. "Matt's in Cincinnati for a job interview, and Jason's got the children while Emma's on bed rest. Doctor's orders for the baby." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of family obligation pressing against my resolve. "I'll see what I can do, Grandma." After we hung up, I called my supervisor to request emergency family leave, booked a train ticket to Indianapolis for the following morning, and arranged for a rental car. The transportation independence I had wanted from the beginning. I texted my grandmother, "I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. Don't worry about picking me up. I've got a rental car." Her reply was immediate, "Bless you, child. I knew I could count on you." The trip to Indiana felt different this time. I was going on my terms, for someone who had shown me genuine care. The boundaries I had established with the rest of my family remained intact. I stayed at a hotel in Franklin rather than at my parents' house, driving my grandmother to her appointments and helping her with groceries and household tasks. She didn't mention the family situation unless I brought it up, but I could tell she was worried about the rift. On my third day in town, I stopped by a local coffee shop and ran into Emma, Jason's wife. Her pregnancy was showing now, her hand resting protectively on her bump as she waited for her decaf order. "Haley." She seemed genuinely pleased to see me. "I heard you were in town helping your grandmother." "That's really sweet of you. How are you feeling?" I asked. Grandma mentioned bed rest. "Just a precaution," she said, patting her belly. "Blood pressure's been a little high." We found a table and talked for nearly an hour. She filled me in on the family aftermath, how my parents had been scrambling to adjust their finances after I withdrew my support, how Matt had been furious about the job recommendation until he got an offer from a company in Cincinnati, how Jason had been uncharacteristically quiet about the whole situation. "He feels bad," Emma said. "He won't admit it, but I can tell. The train station thing was mostly his idea." That didn't surprise me. Jason had always been the cruelest prankster in the family. "The thing is," Emma continued, lowering her voice, "I think they all know they crossed a line. They're just too proud to admit it. Your mom was crying before they left for their cruise. Because I stopped paying part of their property tax?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "No." Emma shook her head. "Because you weren't answering her calls. She kept saying, 'My daughter won't even talk to me.' I think it finally hit her that this isn't like all the other times you've forgiven them. I absorbed this information silently. Part of me felt vindicated that my absence was actually being felt. Another part ached with the complicated grief of family estrangement. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, Emma added quickly. What they did was wrong. I just thought you should know they're not as cavalier about it as they might seem in their texts. I thanked her for her honesty, and we parted with a hug. As I drove back to my grandmother's house, Emma's words echoed in my mind. Were my parents genuinely remorseful, or just upset about the consequences of their actions? That evening, while helping my grandmother prepare dinner, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Haley? It's Matt. I'm using a hotel phone because I figured you're screening your calls. He wasn't wrong. What do you want, Matt? I got the job in Cincinnati, he said. Without your recommendation. Congratulations. Yeah, well. He paused. Look, I'm not good at this, but I'm sorry about the train thing. It was over the line. The admission caught me off guard. Matt had never apologized for a prank before. Jason's idea? I asked. Originally, yeah. But we all went along with it. Another pause. I didn't think about how you'd actually get home or where you'd stay. That was messed up. Yes, I said simply. It was. Anyway, I'm moving to Cincinnati in January, so I guess we'll be closer. Chicago's what, 4 hours from there? About that. Maybe we could meet halfway sometime. When you're ready. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the pattern of behavior, but it was something. A crack in the family's united front of denial. Maybe, I said. I need more time. After we hung up, I sat on my grandmother's porch swing, watching the sunset over the familiar neighborhood. The week of helping her had been healing in unexpected ways. I had shown up for family obligation without sacrificing my boundaries. I had maintained my dignity while still offering support where it was genuinely needed and appreciated. My phone pinged with an email notification. It was from my therapist in Chicago, responding to the update I'd sent her about the whole situation. Haley, I'm proud of you for setting these boundaries. What your family did wasn't a prank, it was emotional abuse disguised as humor. It's okay to protect yourself, even from family. Especially from family who has consistently violated your trust. Take all the time you need to heal. We'll talk more when you're back in Chicago. Her validation bolstered my resolve. This wasn't an overreaction or a petty revenge. It was a necessary recalibration of relationships that had been unhealthy for far too long. As my week in Franklin drew to a close, I helped my grandmother set up grocery delivery and arranged for a local college student to check in on her daily until my parents returned from their cruise. I promised to call more regularly and to visit again if she needed me. You're a good girl, Haley, she said as I prepared to leave. No matter what the rest of them say. What are they saying? I couldn't help asking. She patted my hand. That you've changed. That you've gotten too big for your britches since moving to Chicago. I smiled ruefully. I have changed, Grandma. I've realized I deserve better than being the family punchline. Good, she said firmly. It's about time. The drive back to Indianapolis and the train journey to Chicago gave me time to reflect on everything that had happened since that fateful day at the station. In just 2 weeks, I had completely restructured my family relationships. I had canceled financial support, logistical help, and easy access to my life. I had established consequences for disrespect. And surprisingly, the world hadn't ended. My family was adapting, albeit reluctantly. Some, like Matt, were even beginning to acknowledge their role in the dysfunction. As the Chicago skyline came into view once again, I felt a surge of gratitude for the life I had built here, friends who respected my boundaries, colleagues who valued my contributions, and a home that was truly safe. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Welcome back, party at my place tonight? the gang's all here. On my way, I replied. My family had cancelled my place at their Thanksgiving table, but in doing so, they had inadvertently helped me find my real place in the world, one where I wasn't expected to endure humiliation as a sign of love. 6 months passed, bringing spring to Chicago and a gradual thawing in my family relationships. I had maintained my boundaries throughout the winter, speaking regularly with my grandmother but keeping minimal contact with my parents and brothers. My parents returned from their cruise to find their property tax situation more complicated than expected without my help, which led to a significant penalty for late filing. My father sent an email, not an apology, but an acknowledgement. This would have been easier with your assistance. We miss having you involved in family matters. It was as close to admitting they had taken me for granted as he was likely to get. Jason and Emma had their baby in February, a girl named Lily. Emma sent photos, which I appreciated, but I maintained my distance from Jason, who still hadn't acknowledged his role in the Thanksgiving incident. Matt settled into his new job in Cincinnati and occasionally sent casual texts about his new life there. His messages carefully avoided any mention of pranks or family drama, focusing instead on neutral topics like local restaurants and sports teams. The distance had been healing. I had used the time to focus on my own life, excelling at work, deepening friendships, even starting to date someone new. Without the constant drain of family obligations and emotional labor, I discovered I had more energy and creativity than I had realized. In May, I received an unexpected email from my mother. Haley, your father and I have been doing some thinking. A lot of thinking, actually. We miss you. The family doesn't feel right without you. We'd like to talk, really talk, if you're willing. We could come to Chicago, or meet somewhere neutral. Please consider it. Love, Mom. After discussing it with my therapist, I agreed to a meeting in Indianapolis, neutral territory for all of us. I suggested a restaurant near the train station, a choice that wasn't lost on any of us. When I arrived, they were already seated, my parents looking older and more subdued than I remembered. My mother stood to hug me, which I accepted stiffly. My father offered a handshake, his expression uncharacteristically solemn. Thank you for coming, he said as we sat down. I appreciate you suggesting this, I replied carefully. After ordering drinks, my mother took a deep breath. We've been talking to a counselor, she said, surprising me completely. Pastor Jim suggested it when we told him about everything. A counselor? I couldn't hide my shock. My parents had always dismissed therapy as something for weak people who can't handle their problems. Family counselor, my father clarified, as if that were somehow more acceptable than a regular therapist. We've had 4 sessions. That's good, I said cautiously. We've been talking about family dynamics, my mother continued. About how the prank started and why they continued. About why you were often the target. I waited, not willing to make this easy for them. The counselor helped us see that what happened at Thanksgiving wasn't really a prank, my father said, looking uncomfortable. It was cruel. We left you vulnerable and alone, and we thought it was funny. Yes, I said simply. You did. We're sorry, Haley, my mother said, tears forming in her eyes. We're truly sorry. Not just for Thanksgiving, but for all of it. For making you the family punchline for so many years. It was the apology I had been waiting for, but now that it had arrived, I wasn't sure how to feel. Part of me wanted to accept it immediately and move forward. Another part remained wary, protective of the boundaries I had worked so hard to establish. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. It means a lot to hear you acknowledge it. Your cancellations, my father said, struggling with the word, made us realize how much we depend on you. Not just financially, but in so many ways. You've always been the responsible one, the one we count on. And we repaid that by humiliating you. The counselor says we've been jealous, my mother added, dabbing at her eyes. Of your success, your independence. The pranks were a way of taking you down a notch when you got too accomplished for our comfort. The admission stunned me. It made sense, the pranks had always escalated when I achieved something significant or demonstrated independence, but I had never expected them to recognize this pattern, let alone admit it. "Where do we go from here?" I asked. "That's up to you," my father said. "We'd like to try to rebuild. On your terms." We talked for nearly 3 hours, outlining what a new relationship might look like. I was clear about my boundaries: no more pranks, period. No dismissing my feelings with "don't be so sensitive." No taking my financial or practical support for granted. They listened, really listened, perhaps for the first time in our relationship. We agreed to start small, regular phone calls, occasional visits, always with the understanding that I would step back if old patterns re-emerged. I wasn't ready to reinstate financial support or unlimited access to my life, but I was willing to open the door a crack. A week after our meeting, I received separate emails from both brothers. Matt's was straightforward. "Mom and Dad told me about your talk. I've been doing some thinking too. I'm sorry for being such a jerk over the years. The counselor they're seeing has a colleague in Cincinnati. I've had 2 appointments. It's weird, but kind of helpful. Maybe we could get coffee next time you're in the Midwest?" Jason's was more complicated. I don't know how to say this, so I'll just say it. I've been the worst brother. The train station thing was my idea. I thought it would be hilarious. I didn't think about how you'd feel or what you'd do. Emma's been on my case about it since it happened. Having Lily has changed my perspective. I keep thinking about how I'd feel if someone treated her the way I've treated you. It makes me sick. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I understand why you canceled us from your life. I would have done the same. Both messages felt genuine in their own ways. I responded to each brother individually, cautiously optimistic but still protective of my hard-won boundaries. By summer, we had established a new family dynamic, not perfect, but markedly improved. My parents called weekly, asking about my life without dismissing my accomplishments. Matt and I met for lunch when I visited Cincinnati for a marketing conference. Jason sent regular photos of Lily with respectful, non-intrusive messages. The most significant change came in July, when my family proposed their annual vacation planning. "We're thinking Myrtle Beach in September," my mother said on our weekly call. "If you're interested in joining us, we'd love to have you. But no pressure, and we understand if you need more time." "Who's handling the planning this year?" I asked cautiously. "Your father and I are covering the rental house," she said. "Everyone's paying their own way. No shared expenses, no complicated arrangements. Just family time if you want it." I considered the invitation. "I'll think about it." "That's all we're asking," she replied. "Oh, and Haley?" "No pranks. We've made it a new family rule." Jason wasn't happy at first, but he's adjusting. That made me smile. I appreciate that. In the end, I did join them for 3 days of the week-long beach vacation. It was strange at first, navigating the new boundaries in person. There were awkward moments and old habits that needed real-time correction. But there were also genuine connections, conversations that went deeper than surface pleasantries, activities that didn't involve anyone's humiliation, and meals where everyone's preferences were respected. One evening, sitting on the beach watching the sunset with my mother, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry we almost lost you," she said softly. "I'm sorry it took such a dramatic step to make everyone see the problem," I replied. She nodded. "Sometimes we need a shock to the system to recognize what we're about to lose. The healing wasn't complete, perhaps it never would be entirely. Some wounds run too deep for perfect healing. But we were building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed, a family dynamic based on mutual respect rather than hierarchy and humiliation." On my flight back to Chicago after the beach trip, I reflected on how far we had come since that snowy night at the train station. My decision to cancel my family's access to my life had been drastic but necessary, the equivalent of a controlled burn that clears away deadwood to allow for new growth. Not everyone would understand the choice I had made. Many would say that family should be forgiven unconditionally, that cutting ties, even temporarily, was too extreme. But those people hadn't lived my experience or felt the cumulative damage of years of pranks designed to put me in my place. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and ultimately for others, is to establish consequences for harmful behavior. My cancellations had created the crisis necessary for change, the discomfort required for growth. As the plane began its descent into Chicago, I felt a sense of peace that had been absent for most of my life. I had found my voice, established my worth, and created space for healthier relationships to develop, with my family and with myself. The road ahead would have its challenges, no doubt. Old patterns don't disappear overnight. But for the first time, I was navigating that road on my own terms, with boundaries intact and self-respect secure. What's your experience with family boundaries? Have you ever had to take a dramatic step back to protect yourself from toxic family dynamics? Hit like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share your own boundary-setting journeys in the comments. Remember that sometimes, the most powerful word in any relationship is no. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you courage for whatever relationship challenges you might be facing.